What's going on, everyone? Y'all already know who it is, your boy Fire Giant CK back again for another video. And this is a video that I seen being made by countless people. And I thought, I think I should share my thoughts on this topic. And the topic of this video is, are 8th generation game consoles still worth it in 2026? Let's find out. So here we got them right here, guys. The PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One X. So we have two 8th gen consoles, and we're going to talk about, why I believe that these two consoles still hold a place, and why I think that anybody that wants to get back into gaming should get any one of these two systems. Let's talk about it. So guys, before we really dive into the video, I just want to show you guys my setup, that I have for my everyday gaming. So as you guys can see, yes, I actually have the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X in my gaming hub and my gaming center, but it's not the ones that you're seeing in this video, right? So I have my limited edition Cyberpunk 2077 Xbox One X inside my gaming setup. And I also have my Glacier White PS4 Pro inside my gaming setup as well. So I figured, hey, if you guys want to see which consoles I actually have in my setup, these are the ones that I got in my setup. So these other ones in the video are just ones that I'm using for conversation's sake, all right? So of course, guys, we got the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro, and these two consoles are the most powerful systems of the last generation. And in my humble opinion, these two consoles still hold a place here in 2026. And part of the reason for this is because of how expensive it is to get a current gen console, right? Getting a PlayStation 5, brand new, if you're going to try to get the digital edition brand new, that is $500 MSRP, right? $499.99. And keep in mind that in some cases, if you get lucky, maybe you can get it for $399.99 in some cases. But overall, it's true MSRP is $499.99. $500 for a console without a disc drive. That is a bit ridiculous. And don't even get me started on the prices of the Xbox Series X. These consoles, pushing $600 and more. It's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous and absurd. So if somebody is trying to get into gaming, or if somebody's trying to figure out, which consoles, are the consoles that are the best bang for your buck, right? If somebody is trying to get into gaming right now, what would I recommend for them? I would recommend these two systems right here. And now let's get into why. Oh, and I figure I would include this as well, because that there are a lot of wise guys and a lot of wise people on the internet, assuming that anybody that talks good about 8th gen consoles is only doing so because they don't have current gen consoles. And just to show, that's the furthest thing from the truth. I actually have both the PS5 Pro and the Xbox Series X. I have both systems right here, as you can see. So these are the two most powerful consoles currently on the market. Yes, I have them both. And the whole point of me showing this is just to say, guys, just because you have something amazing doesn't mean you have to talk bad about the previous generation, all right? So first off, let's talk about the Xbox One X. So the Xbox One is a console that launched in 2013, guys, right? And that console originally launched with the Kinect system. Then they made a revision called the Xbox One S in 2016. And then, of course, this baby here, the Xbox One X, came out in 2017. And as you can see, this is actually the Gears 5 limited edition Xbox One X. So that's the one that I got right here. And this system is amazing to me because it does 4K graphics, and it can support up to 4K at 60 FPS. Even though the majority of the games that you play on this thing will probably be 4K at 30 FPS. But still, the fact that this console supports 60 frames and it supports 4K is amazing to me. And the fact that it also supports VRR as well as HDR and even Dolby Vision is awesome. The fact that it still has, the CD drive, the Blu-ray drive is amazing. It can play CDs, it can play DVDs, it can play Blu-rays, it can play 4K Blu-rays, and even 3D Blu-rays. So this game console right here, phenomenal system. And you can find it on the used market if you go on sites like, let's say, Facebook Marketplace, sites like OfferUp, even Mercari or even eBay, or even if you go to your local garage sale, right? You can find people probably selling the Xbox One X. And This console usually is anywhere around $100. Sometimes you may find it for 120, even 150. But usually when I see this console, it's usually around 100 to 120 bucks, which is just the console with the controller. If you get lucky, you may find the console with a controller and some games for like 150, but usually within the 100 to $120 range is what I usually see this console go for. And of course, if you're interested in getting, let's say, a limited edition like the one that I got, it's gonna cost you slightly more, right, guys? But the Xbox One X, a phenomenal system, capable of 4K gaming without breaking the bank for under $200. So great console. Of course, I can't talk about the Xbox One X without talking about some of the games for the system, guys. I mean, this system, so many games look phenomenal on it. Like Gears 4 looks great. Gears 5 especially looks phenomenal on the Xbox One X. Red Dead Redemption 2 looks amazing. It runs Red Dead Redemption 2 at a native 4K at 30 FPS. Yes, this 2017 console was actually doing that. You know, Dead or Alive 6 looks great on this console. This system overall is a beast, especially when it comes to playing multi-plats as well. So great system, and also a great console for backwards compatibility. I'll say that too. You know, the Banjo-Kazooie games look awesome. Ninja Gaiden 2 looks great on this console. Ninja Gaiden Black looks great on this console. The Xbox One X is just a beast, man. A total beast. And it will handle your games perfectly fine. So if you're somebody that likes good graphics and you like 4K and you like to see all the textures and assets in your games, Xbox One X, phenomenal system without breaking the bank, man. Now over here, guys, we got the PS4 Pro. And this, of course, would also be the final revision of the PS4 that Sony would release, right? And it kind of follows a similar timeline to the Xbox One X, right? The original PlayStation 4, right? The original fat model came out in 2013. Then in 2016 came the PS4 Slim, and then later in 2016 came this console, the PS4 Pro. But as you guys can see, this is also a limited edition, just like my Xbox One X, and this is The Last of Us Part 2 edition. So this is the final revision of the PS4 Pro that would be released before the PS5 would come out. And this console is also spectacular in its own right. And first things first, pretty much about, I want to say at least about 60 to 70% of games that are on PlayStation 5 can also be played on the PS4 Pro. So for example, Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, you can play Marvel Spider-Man 2018 on this console. You can play Spider-Man Miles Morales. You can play God of War 2018, God of War Ragnarok. You can play Ratchet and Clank 2016 on this console. You could play, this game, The Last of Us Part 2. You can play The Last of Us 1 remastered. So there's so many games that are on PS5 that you can still play on this console. Horizon Forbidden West is playable on this system. Sackboy's Big Adventure is playable on the system. Like, there's so many games that are playable on this console. So my whole thing is, this console on average, like if you also go to the sites that I mentioned before, like this Mercari, OfferUp, like eBay, same thing. This console is anywhere from like 100 to 150 bucks, you know, just like the Xbox One X, you know, regarding if it's a special edition, if it comes with a controller, you know, if it has multiple games. But this one is also in the same price range, between 100 to 120 bucks. But probably 150 is probably the most that you'll probably find this console for. So in my humble opinion, it's a way better value to get a PlayStation 4 Pro than getting a PS5, especially if you're new to gaming. You know, if you're somebody that's just trying to get back into gaming, the PS5, yes, is going to be superior in technology to the PS4 Pro. But again, is it worth spending 100 to 150 bucks to get this console, or spending $500 to get a console without even having a disc drive? Kind of insane, right? When I put it like that. And the next thing about this console is that it also supports 4K gaming as well. And yes, a lot of it is upscaling, you know, and upsampling. It's not native 4K like some Xbox One X games, but it still looks amazing when you see games upscaled to 4K. Like even Shadow of the Tomb Raider looks phenomenal on this console. Like I said, God of War 2018 looks phenomenal. The Last of Us Part 2. All these games look great. Even a game like Infamous Second Son looks great on this console. You know what I mean? This console is a beast, the PS4 Pro. The only thing about this console that I do wish it had, unlike the Xbox One X, is I wish that this console had a 4K Blu-ray drive. The thing about the system is that the Blu-ray drive is not 4K, just a regular Blu-ray drive. So it does support standard Blu-rays, it does support 4K Blu-rays, but it doesn't support, I mean, not 4K Blu-rays, sorry, it supports 3D Blu-rays and standard Blu-rays, but it doesn't support 4K Blu-rays. And the next thing that I don't like about this drive is that it can't play CDs. Yes, guys, don't ask me why, but for some reason, the Xbox One X can play CDs and the PlayStation 4 Pro cannot. And it's the same thing, with the PS5. The PS5 cannot play CDs, but the Xbox Series X can. So, I don't know. But either way, it is still a great console. It is still an amazing system, and it is a great bang for your buck. So, the PlayStation 4 Pro, still a phenomenal console at the end of the day. So, both systems, amazing. Of course, we can't talk about these systems, and we can't talk about the games, and especially their capabilities, without talking about the number one thing that actually, makes these systems work the way that they do. The controllers, right? Even today, the DualShock 4 controller still feels amazing to me. As you can see, I have a custom grip on top of this one. But man, it still feels great to hold in the hands. Yes, the PlayStation 5 controller, to me, does feel a bit more comfortable. But that's because, as you can see, I am a dude that has big hands. But when you have like a skin on it, this controller feels amazing, honestly. So I could use both controllers. But I'll say this. The Xbox One controller, to this day, still feels amazing to me. So I love this controller so much. It still feels really handy. It still feels awesome. And it is very, very comfy. Again, since I'm a dude that has big hands, as you can see, the controller just naturally sits right in the palm of my hand, right? One of the handles sits naturally right in the palm of my hand. No issue, no problems or anything. So the cool thing about these consoles is that with the Xbox, you can actually use a newer Xbox controller and you can use it on the older system. So you could use the Xbox Series X controller on the Xbox One X and vice versa. You can take this Xbox One X controller and you can use it on the Xbox Series X too. So that is awesome. Now regarding the PS4 Pro, well, this one is a little bit sticky. So I'm gonna get into this. So the cool thing about it is technically you can use a PS4 controller on a PS5. So, well, Fire Dragon, what's the caveat? Well, the caveat to that is you can only use a PS4 controller on a PS5 if you're playing PS4 games. For example, if I am playing, Spyro, right, the Spyro trilogy, if I'm playing the Crash trilogy, if I am playing Devil May Cry 4, right, remastered, God of War 3 remastered, all those games are PS4 games. So I could technically use this PS4 controller on the PS5. But if I'm going to play a game like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, right? The Amazing Spider-Man 2, right? If I'm going to play a game like Ghost of Yotei, I can't play none of those games using the DualShock 4 controller because those games are PS5 exclusive games. So the only games that you can play using the PS4 controller are PS4 games. You cannot play PS5 games with a PS4 controller on a PS5. And you also can't use the PS5 controller on a PS4. So I can't use my my DualSense on this system. So that is something that is also very unfortunate. And I'll even show you what I mean. So here is my Ghost of Yotei limited edition PS5 controller. I cannot use this controller on this PS4 Pro, but I can use this DualShock 4 controller on PS5, but it doesn't work in reverse. You see what I'm saying? So very, very unfortunate. And that's one thing that I do like that Microsoft did, is that they allow you to do it both ways. You can use the Xbox One controller on the new console, or you can use the new controller on the old console. It works both ways. So to me, that is really dope. So final thoughts and recommendations, regarding these two consoles. So final thoughts, again, just like I said throughout this whole video, these two systems are the best bang for your buck if you're somebody trying to get back into gaming, or if you're trying to even get a secondary system, right? Maybe you already have a PS5 and you don't want to spend, close to $600 getting an Xbox Series X, or you don't even want to spend $300, getting an Xbox Series S. There's always the option to pick up an Xbox One X for $100 to $150 in the used market. And vice versa. You may have an Xbox Series X console and you may not want to spend $500 on a PS5. You could always pick up a PS4 Pro used in that same ballpark, 100 to 150 bucks, right? So in my opinion, the first takeaway is that these two consoles are the best value right now as a gamer. The second recommendation and takeaway is, yes, get these versions of the consoles. So what I mean by this is that if you guys remember, I told you guys that there are 3 versions of the Xbox One, and there are also 3 versions of the PlayStation 4. I recommend definitely getting the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro. Why? Because these are the 2 versions of the consoles that support 4K TVs, right, guys? The other versions of the consoles only go up to 1080p, whereas these models go up to 4K, and they support 4K monitors and TVs. So I would highly recommend you guys get the PS4 Pro or the Xbox One X. Again, it doesn't have to be like me and the fancy limited edition version. It could just be the standard version of each console. But definitely recommend, getting this version of the system, the ones that support 4K gaming. And last but not least, the next recommendation and the final recommendation, something that a lot of people I don't hear talk about enough: upgrade the hard drive of these systems. You hear me? Upgrade the hard drive in these systems. So one of the main advantages of having a current gen console like a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X over these last gen systems is indeed the speed of the hard drive, right, guys? Because the current systems use M.2 SSDs inside of them, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X. So they are blazing fast and lightning fast, and they could load up games quickly, they could close games quickly, they can come out of rest mode quickly, they can start up quickly. Basically, these systems are like Sonic, right? They're super duper fast, right? Whereas these consoles here, let's just say that there's much to be desired, right? In the speed department. So both of these consoles have 5400 RPM hard drives inside of them, guys, by default. So they are not even going to hold a candle to the speed of these current gen consoles. But there is something that you can do to help mitigate that. And that's what I was alluding to before, by using an SSD. Yes, if you upgrade the standard hard drive to an SSD, it's not going to make these quite as fast as the new consoles, but it's at least going to cut the loading times in half compared to using the stock hard drive. You know what I mean? Like this right here makes the UI so snappy on the PS4 Pro. The PS4 Pro, you can literally launch the PlayStation Store in about 2 seconds if you have an SSD installed. You could come out of rest mode very quickly. It loads up textures and assets really quickly in the games and stuff. And same thing on the Xbox One X. The UI is super duper snappy. It instant on mode is even more instant than before. Games close and launch very fast. It's just overall a very snappy experience. Again, not as quick and not as snappy as the current gen consoles, but a massive improvement over the stock hard drives that these consoles ship with. Once you put an SSD inside of these consoles, you're gonna sit there and think, man, these consoles were meant to have an SSD inside of them, when you see how quickly and how responsive they are. So overall, guys, the final recommendation: make sure that you upgrade these consoles with an SSD. And again, it doesn't have to be like me. In my personal opinion, I use a 2 terabyte SSD. So both of these systems have 2 terabyte SSDs inside of them, but you could just replace it with a standard 1 terabyte SSD if you don't want to spend that type of money. You know what I mean? But I would at least get a SSD and take out that hard drive. And if anything, you could use it as an external hard drive, to add more storage to the system. So there's always that too. So I hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Me just giving my thoughts on these last gen systems and why they're still relevant in 2026. All right. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend. All right. So definitely stay tuned, because we are going to have more videos coming on the way. All right, y'all. We are locked in for 2026. All right. Peace, everybody, and have a great day. All right. We out.